Another edition of Beef Up Front coming your way. Hello, everybody. Sean Brace, Ryan, Beef, COYLE, talking all things college football. Ladies and gentlemen, can you feel it? Can you taste it? It's in the air. Rankings are being discussed. The lineups and rosters are filled. Nobody else is going to be ending up anywhere else. We know who's playing on Saturdays all throughout the course of the season in college football. Today, we focus on the ACC, a disappointing conference last year. Will that be the same, or will this conference rise from the ashes? Led by Clemson with all the expectations coming into the season, possibly Louisville, possibly Miami, the return of the Florida State Seminoles after a 2-win season last year. We're going to hit on it all. Or could it be Bill Belichick's year with Jordan? Ryan Beef COYLE with us here. Hello, Ryan.
I don't know if it was necessarily such a down year for the ACC. They did wind up getting two teams to the playoff, SMU and Clemson. I think Clemson kind of emerges back from I thought they were on the downslope. Now they enter this year as, a consensus top 5 team. Might even have like 5 first-round draft picks this year. Might even have the number 1 overall pick in Cade Klubnik. So they have a national title contender in this conference. But after that, I think it's wide open. I think you can make a good argument for 45 teams vying for probably that second bid out of the ACC, even if they even get one. It'll be interesting to see. But I think Clemson, far and away the best team. Who's second, who's third, who's fourth? That'll be a fun discussion to have tonight.
Did the ACC struggle in bowl games? Is that what's coming to my mind?
I mean, Florida State entered the season as a top 10 team. They win 2 games. Miami went into the season with expectations, I think, of a playoff team. They choke, fall short. And then SMU gets rolled by Penn State in their playoff game. Clemson, they wound up losing to Texas. So, I mean, not top to bottom. They weren't the SEC or the Big Ten. But I still think getting 2 teams to the playoff last year was a pretty.
No, you're right. I agree with that. You're right. I thought that maybe they had a bad bowl record. Maybe that was what was coming to my mind. But you're right. As far as getting two teams in Clemson and SMU, that's nothing to slight. With that being said, let's talk about this year and the expectations for a lot of these teams coming in. And I like to hit on the big storylines to start. I think it's about Dabo. I think it's about Clemson. I think that is the big storyline. We know how good they have been. Of course, national champions, really represented the conference at the biggest stage. And Dabo's built a hell of a program down there. Of course, a little bit of a slip up, and you lose a guy like Trevor Lawrence, and next thing you know, you got people questioning what you have cooking down there. But Cade Klubnik is a pretty darn good quarterback. For my money right now, if you made me make a wager, I'd have to go with the favorite, Beef, at plus 105 Clemson to win it all or win the ACC championship game next year. Your thoughts on Clemson coming in this year?
Yeah, I think the ACC is the one conference that 9 out of 10 people out of the Power 4 would agree on for the champion. I think you have to make a pretty compelling argument to convince anyone that it's not going to be this Clemson team at plus 105. They were plus 130 earlier in the offseason, so that keeps moving down. By the time kickoff rolls around, I wouldn't be surprised if they're a favorite, if they're minus money at that stage. 5 potential first-round picks led by Cade Klubnik at the quarterback, Antonio Williams at receiver. You got 2 defensive linemen that are going to go top 10 most likely, and TJ Parker and Peter Woods, an edge rusher and a defensive tackle, respectively. And then you got Avion Terrell, which is AJ Terrell of the Atlanta Falcons, a Pro Bowl, All-Pro corner. His younger brother is a standout corner there. If you look at any mock draft, those 5 guys are all projected to go round 1. It's hard to kind of make an argument against that. You got Cade Klubnik for year 3 as a starter, returning with Garrett Riley, 3-year offensive coordinator now. Lincoln Riley's younger brother calling the plays. He was the former OC at TCU, and him and Klubnik have struck up a good relationship, good chemistry. So everything is kind of pointing in the right direction for this team, for this program. And what I think is probably the weakest of the Power 4 conferences. I think you can make an argument with the Big 12, but the Big 12 just depth-wise might have like 6 or 7 teams that could actually win it. I think when you look at the ACC, you have maybe 2 teams, 3 teams that you can make an argument to actually win the conference. But I think head and shoulders, Clemson's that best team.
Tough game to open up the season with LSU. Your thoughts on that one? I believe that's a 3.5-point spread.
Yeah, that's certainly a fun one. The night game of that great Week 1 slate that we have in front of us. But I do like Clemson in that one. Brian Kelly and LSU have struggled out of the gate. That's been their mo. I think they're actually the program itself has lost their last 6 season openers. I know their focus and their mantra this whole offseason has been to start 1-0, but that's a tough game to go on the road to Clemson. I think Clemson just, a little bit more experience of a team, continuity wise, everything together, and at home. I think they're going to find a way to win that one. I'd probably put that in the ballpark of like a 34-28, something kind of in that range. I think it's a great game. I don't think we're going to really learn much about either team. I think it's going to be kind of what we expected. Don't expect a blowout in that one, but I do like Clemson to get that one at home. And I probably would lean to take them to cover, but I think that was at 3, so we're already kind of seeing some line movement there.
3.5 at this point in time. Once again, the 30th of August coming our way. A team that nobody is discussing at all when it comes to this year's ACC, as far as having success this year. At least, to my knowledge, I don't hear anybody propping up SMU, and possibly they had the most successful season out of any team in the conference last year. Your outlook on the SMU Mustangs this year is what? Plus 850 to win the ACC championship game.
I got them at 9-3. I actually went through and did every team's record today, predicted every schedule. So I got all my predictions lined up. I think they're right there in the mix to be, the second or third team in the conference. Kevin Jennings returns at quarterback. Rhett Lashley has proven to be a really good coach, can coach some really good offense there. So I expect them firmly to be in the mix. I do think that they're a peg below what Clemson is going into the season, maybe even 2 pegs below. But when you return a quarterback that played as well as Jennings did last year, and you have the head coach returning, and this is only the team's second year here in the ACC, you got to expect they're continuing to get better players coming up from the G5. I expect that SMU program to continue to rise. And with all that money that they have down there at SMU, you look at a team like Texas Tech in the Big 12, all the infusion of NIL money that they're getting. I expect, schools like SMU who have similar deep pockets to kind of run with the same thing. So look at SMU over these next few years to be competing right at the top there with Clemson year after year, I think.
All right, on to the next one. Let's talk about Louisville. That's a team that I believe you believe in. And look, I understand the coach is where you're going to go with Jeff Brom, but getting Miller Moss to come to town after he torched Louisville in the Holiday Bowl for 6 touchdown passes where they won 42-28, and now he joins Louisville. I think that's a pretty cool storyline to get the season started. Your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's a team I definitely like. I think it's a Fox Sports The Gambler. Right? We might have to adopt Louisville kind of as our team of the year. I know I'm high on them. I know Mark's high on them. I know McClay's high on them. It's a team that returns a lot from last year, who was a very good team in the mix there. This was a team that beat Clemson last year. And you touch on it. They bring in Miller Moss, and Jeff Brom showed the ability to work with Tyler Shough. I mean, he made him into a viable NFL draft pick. He's going to be the day one starter for the Saints. It's not saying all that much, but to turn a guy into pretty much an unknown at the quarterback spot, Shough played a lot of college ball, but wasn't really looked at as a pro prospect going into last year, becomes a pretty viable one over the year. Miller Moss probably sees that same vision. He looks at this as his last chance, and Brom saw what he could do up close. But where I really like this team is freshman running back from last year, Isaac Brown. He returns after a true freshman season. He'll be a sophomore this year. I look at him to actually win the Doak Walker Award and be the best running back in the entire country. I'm going to go with that one, a pretty bold pick there at 20-1. But the Doak Walker Award winner is going to be Isaac Brown for my money. I wasn't looking at the screen. I was reading some stuff.
All right. Well, that's the beauty of live, number one. Number two is I'll edit this up and then we'll bring it back. So you just answered real quick.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I had a deep. Wait, hang on.
Got you now.
You got me now?
A little like echoed or muffled.
Man, yeah, no, I got to edit this.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How about now? Sounding better?
Yeah, you're good now.
All right. My bad. I had to handle something with the baby. But with that being said, you answered Miller Moss in Louisville.
Yep.
All right. Cool. I'll edit it up. You the man. Appreciate it. Sorry about that. All right. Once again, Beef, take me through as far as the connection with Jeff Brom and why some people are starting to think that like he is a great QB guru that's all of a sudden going to be able to make Miller Moss, who did struggle at USC for some time as well. I know that he ended on a high note, but it wasn't the best season. He got benched. Why are we supposed to believe with the combination of Brom and Moss is going to be successful down in Louisville?
Yeah, so Miller Moss actually did that damage against Louisville in the bowl game 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, last year, Mayava took over for Moss down the stretch at USC. But, you know, to go out there and basically Miller Moss's first start at USC in that bowl game, he lit him up. And he reminds me a lot of Tyler Shuck, the quarterback that Jeff Brom just had this past year at Louisville. He turned him into a viable NFL draft prospect. And it sounds like Shuck's going to be the day one starter for the New Orleans Saints in the NFL. You know, say what you want about that situation. Probably going to be the worst team in the NFL this year, but he's going to be one of 32 NFL starting quarterbacks. And if you said that this time last year, people probably look at you like you're crazy. So Miller Moss probably sees that. Jeff Brom probably sees that, the similarities between the two and the belief that they can make him into a potential, you know, mid-round draft pick coming up. So I'll give the head coach the benefit of the doubt. I think the running game is going to be really good with Isaac Brown in the backfield. I really like this Louisville team. Another team I got going 9-3. I think they have the potential to compete right there to be the team that becomes the ACC title.
All right, let's get on over to the Hurricanes. And college football is better when Miami's good. And last year they were fun to watch. And then I'm hoping the same as if not even better this year with Carson Beck. Again, we talked about this in summer school where, look, you know, coming into the season, nobody had more expectations than Carson Beck. It didn't work out for him in the long run, but ultimately we know what he's capable of. And going down to Miami could raise things up another level, as we saw last year with Cam Ward at the quarterback position, and obviously raised his stock as he was drafted number 1 overall. But Carson Beck and the Miami Hurricanes, your expectations this year is what?
Disaster zone. I got this team going 6-6. I'm going to be fighting for bowl eligibility. I was all in on Miami last year. I thought the offensive line was great. I thought the defensive line was great. I thought Cam Ward was going to be a great addition, and he made me look smart for most of the season. Winds up being the number 1 pick. Was probably going to win the Heisman Trophy, I think, if that team goes to the playoff. If that team goes to the playoff and doesn't piss down their leg down the stretch, he's probably your Heisman Trophy winner at the quarterback spot. That's how good Cam Ward was last year. I think Carson Beck is a steep step down from what Cam Ward was. I think the turnovers are going to be too much. Quite frankly, I've never seen it with Carson Beck. I know some of his numbers look good, but he was throwing to Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. I think when he was forced to play with guys a little bit lesser than that, I think he was worse. And when you look at the strength of this Miami squad, it's on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I think the defensive line is going to be good. I think the offensive line is going to be good, so that's going to keep them in games. But I just think he's going to turn it over a little bit too much, and he's coming off a serious arm injury, pretty much a reconstructive surgery on that elbow. So a lot to come back from, and the way he left Georgia, it didn't really seem like they were going to miss him. They kind of just said, like, all right, you can head out. We don't really want you here anymore. That gives me a little bit of caution of kind of what he's like in the locker room. He's another guy that seems like he's a bag chaser. It seems like he's kind of all about the money and the image. I don't really know how much of a team first guy he is. So it's kind of hard to go into a situation, your only year there, to kind of win over the locker room. I just think the schedule's pretty tough too. I think they have a chance at being one of the most disappointing teams in all of college football this season.
Cristobal on the hot seat. If they come up small this year, if they go 10-3, what if they run it back the same record this year? Is he on the hot seat?
Nah, if he goes 9-3, 10-2, somewhere in that ballpark, he's more than fine. Like I think it's gotten to the point with Miami football where you can't expect to go into the season going 11-1 and 12-0. If you're 9-3, 10-2, 8-4, kind of in that
They're
mix.
spending top dollar though on that quarterback position across college football.
But the thing that you have to keep in mind now, and it's what everybody says who's kind of involved with the sport, how bad really is the coach? Like, is the coach that bad that we want to do $50 million on a buyout? Because then that's $50 million less we have to give the players. That's $50 million, less or more that we're going to have to pay another coach additionally. So how bad really is it? Kind of like the Mike Norvell situation at Florida State. The buyout was like $75 million. You had to go out and get a new head coach, and then you have $75 million less to pay the players.
That's fair. That's fair. It's a good argument too, and it's definitely something that's with the change of the way college athletics work these days, something you have to factor in a hell of a lot more to bite that bullet. Although I'm sure Miami has a few boosters that would be more than happy to step up. All right, let's keep it moving, and let's talk about another team that maybe might be a little slighted. Had a hell of a season last year. As you look at the win-loss record total, 3 teams had 10 or more wins throughout the course of the season. We just talked about Miami. We just talked about Clemson. The other one, Syracuse. What's the latest with Syracuse? We got a program being built right before our eyes. The expectations this year for you be for what?
I think another team that takes a step back. They definitely performed over their head last year, I think. And I love Fran Brown. I think he's a great coach. I think, if he actually wants to stay at Syracuse long term, he can really build that into an ACC contender. But they have one of the top 5 toughest schedules in all of college football this year. They're going to be ushering in a new quarterback who doesn't have nearly as much experience that Kyle McCord did last year. A lot of guys from that successful 10-win team last year are out the door. Steve Angeli sounds like he's going to be the quarterback. If you remember him, he was the Notre Dame backup. He transfers in. He was the guy that came in for that drive last year when Riley Leonard in the Penn State game in the Orange Bowl. And he looked really solid. He played sparingly at Notre Dame. He played in a bowl game 2 years ago. I think it was against Cal potentially. But he's a guy that doesn't really have that much snaps. Can he come in and replicate the success of McCord? I'm not sure. I think that's one of the things that gets lost in the shuffle about Kyle McCord. He was a former 5-star recruit. It's not like he was, Joe Blow off the street. He was a really talented passer out of high school. And then he gets the opportunity to really kind of sling it loose at Syracuse, and he looks great. Can Steve Angeli do that? I don't know. I think it's a team that probably takes a step back this year, but I do think Fran Brown's a good enough coach to get this team to a bowl game. So I actually have them going 6-6 this season.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about Duke, NC State, and Virginia Tech. If there is a team out of those 3 that you think could make a jump, win an extra game or 2, so therefore that's going to help the record out a little bit more. Duke went 9-4 last season. NC State 6-7, disappointing, as well as Virginia Tech. Of course, Virginia Tech should come in with a little bit more expectations, home field advantage, better than both of those other schools as well. And it's always, it's better for college football when the Hokies are good too as well. I know Frank Beamer ain't walking through that door, but that place gets electric. Out of those 3 teams in the ACC, who do you expect to have a better season? NC State, Duke, or Virginia Tech?
Duke. I actually have them at 8-4, so pretty much the same record that they had last year. But I think it's a team that has a ceiling of like a 9-3 potentially if all things shake right. They get arguably the best transfer quarterback from this past cycle. He transfers from Tulane from the G5 up to Duke, Darian Mensah. That was an interesting situation. Malik Murphy was a really good quarterback for them last year. He transfers out to Oregon State, and they bring up Darian Mensah. If you don't know him, you're going to know him. And Manny Diaz has proven over these past couple of years since he took over that job last year, that was a really good squad last year, really tough squad. After a rocky tenure at Miami, he kind of rewrites his career as a DC at Penn State, and now he's making the most of this opportunity at Duke. So I think Duke's a team that probably goes about 8-4 or 9-3 this upcoming season.
Florida State Seminoles. I'm on the over, Beef.
Your squad.
I like the Seminoles. I think they bounce back. A ton of transfers. That's a team that comes in. Look, I think you're right when you talk about the grand scheme of firing a coach, but saying that Miami shouldn't come to expect to win 10 or 11 wins, I disagree. Same thing with Florida State. Florida State, as bad as the year was last year, they're not tempering their expectations. Like, you know what? we'll be okay if we get 7, maybe 8 wins this year. Realistically, this schedule's tough, but they expect to win national championships down there at Florida State. I'm not going to say it's easy to flip the script after winning 2 games, as I said, but they got a quarterback. I like Norvell. He's trying to fire him up. I like that approach. And if they get some studs down there, especially on defense, I think they could rip it up. Tough game to open up against Alabama, though.
Yeah, it's a team that I'm not going to say I've talked myself more into. Looking at the schedule, though, I think it's doable. I actually have them at 8-4, so I think that would cash your over. What was that? 7.5 that you get it at? Yeah, so I think they're going to be kind of right there in that ballpark. 7-5, 8-4. I think the big thing with that team last year was like they weren't short on talent. It was just so that first game against Georgia Tech and just how bad DJ looked. And then even the next week against Boston College, it was like that team's like will to play, just to show up, was kind of just ripped out of them. And the season was really over before it started. Like you don't just go into the season ranked number 9 in the country and then just fall apart like that unless something kind of crazy happened. And I think they just knew they had no shot going out there with DJU. I remember seeing like they're shooting water guns at practice one day. Like it was just a weird operation from the start. And you have to keep in mind, too, that was a program that had their breakthrough 2 years ago. You know, they thought they were going to the playoff. Jordan Travis was looking awesome. Then he snaps his leg against Northern Alabama, and the program kind of goes on a downhill slide ever since. All the drama about them not getting in the playoff and so on. It was just kind of an unfortunate past, 36 months for this Florida State program. They have a chance to right the ship this year. I got them going 8-4. I think it's a doable schedule. Got it here in front of me. Start out with the Alabama game, that's tough. But if they can go out there and keep that within 10 points, I think that's a win for them in that one. At home, too, who knows? Alabama with a rotating cast of characters, potentially at quarterback. But then they get East Texas A&M and Kent State, who should be layups, get some confidence as you head into ACC play. And you got home games against Miami. You got a home game against Pitt. You got a couple of these tougher ACC schools at home. I think the schedule is really going to come down to their last 4 games, though. They go to Clemson, host Virginia Tech, go to NC State, and then they go to Florida. 3 tough games there on the road to end the season. I actually got them going 2-2. I think that's a win down the stretch there, and I think if they go 2-2 in that stretch, they should cash that over 7.5 on the season.
All right, staying in the ACC, of course, with all eyes on the conference, getting you ready for all things college football season right around the corner. A team that did open it up with the victory last year, and a lot of fun to watch throughout the course of the season, even though they ended up 7-6. Haynes King at the quarterback position is a ton of fun. A lot like Diego Pavia down there in Nashville. Haynes King, for my money, is well worth the price of admission. You got to tune in when Georgia Tech is on your screen. Now, this year, 7.5 is the win total. I like it. I think it's a fun wager that you can get behind. They're the underdog. They'll be underdogs in a lot of these big games. Clemson, Georgia to end the season, of course. But Georgia Tech this year, your expectations, do you think over 7.5 is a worthy play?
Love that play of over 7.5. This is a team I got going 9-3. Another team with a very doable schedule, returning quarterback in Haynes King, and a really good head coach in Brent Key. I think that this is a program that knows under Brent Key how to play to their strengths. I remember watching that game last year against Florida State, and I heard something the other day. That was the week 1 game, but they held Florida State in that game to 9 possessions, and Florida State didn't do themselves many favors with their quick 3-and-outs. But Georgia Tech went to that game basically saying, we're going to run the ball, we're going to milk the clock, and we're going to play keep away in this one. And they did that. They executed to perfection. And I just think it's a program that knows what they do well, and they go out there and they execute it. I like them to go 9-3 this year. Another team I think we look up, we could see them in the ACC title game. But open up going to Colorado. I think Colorado takes a step back this year. And they host Gardner-Webb. I think that's a 2-0 start. They host Clemson, week 3. They win that game. That is a everyone look out type game. Georgia Tech could be a legit ACC contender. That's a cool one. But then they got some layups against Temple and Wake Forest. They host Virginia Tech. They host Syracuse. They host Pitt. These are all games that they should win. They should be favored in. Then last year they take Georgia to what was it, 7-8 overtimes? They get them at home this year. Wouldn't be a game that I'm shocked to see them win. So I think Georgia Tech is one of the surprise teams, sleeper teams, not just in the ACC, but in the entire country this year. If we look up and they win double-digit games, I'm not going to be surprised at all.
8 p.m. on Friday, August 29th, on the road in Boulder, opening up against Deion Sanders, where they are 4-point favorites. Interesting game, of course, with everything that we have learned with Deion, man, hearts and thoughts and everything, prayers, all that. They go out to Deion dealing with cancer this year. Unbelievable. My man's out there with 8 toes, being honest with everybody. It's just insane. Like, why even do it, Deion? Just hang it up. But, man, he is dialed in. He wants to coach another year. And we were joking whether or not Colorado will show up and play for him. And he's going to be motivating beyond belief. But that is a tough game, and the odds makers believe that Colorado's going to lose. They got Georgia Tech 4-point favorite in that game. Do you agree? Are you willing to give the 4 on the road in Boulder to open up the season with Georgia Tech?
Yeah, I think that's a telling line. And I think the Colorado quarterback situation is one to watch. Juju Lewis, a 5-star recruit, is he starting, or is Caden Salter, the transfer from Liberty, starting? That's one where I could see those guys kind of alternating reps. And it's a Colorado team that, lost, obviously, Travis, lost Shador. You're kind of turning a page for the program there. Let's see what Deion can really do, without the one player in the country, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and his son. Let's see what he can really do this year. I think it's going to be fascinating, but it is going to be cool to see him out there. I was worried that he was going to step down. Say what you want about Deion, but I think the sport has been fun and entertaining with him at the helm. It's certainly been something to talk about. We've talked about it, I feel like, each and every week that he's been the coach at Colorado when we've had our show. But it's a situation where I think that they're poised for a bit of a step back this year. That's a very experienced Georgia Tech team. I think Georgia Tech goes out there and does what they did to Florida State. They run the ball down their throat, and they do that from the opening snap, and they go out to Boulder and win that game pretty comfortably.
It's going to be a must-see TV with Deion. As I said, having to go through bladder cancer. You talk about the best spokesperson out there, to go ahead and bring awareness to this. Very open, and as he often is. And like I said, just a true one-of-one human being, man. Deion is a god in all things football. So definitely pulling for him. And it would be interesting to see them pull off the upset. That's for sure. I'm not going to bet against them. But if you made me, I would take Georgia Tech as well, given what you pointed out as far as the number is concerned. Total agreement there. All right, got to talk about UNC. Bill Belichick. Supposedly they're selling out left and right. Season tickets were gone in a second, and then some with the future years. It all starts this year versus TCU on September 1st. Looks like that's a home game. I just put my glasses away. I don't think it's a neutral field. It is a Monday, though. TCU and UNC. Belichick year one, your expectations.
Another team with a very doable schedule. Like, it's not going to surprise me if we look up and this North Carolina team wins 8 or 9 games, just thanks to the schedule itself. The thing that I've thought about this entire kind of offseason since Bill Belichick got hired, it's like, can you imagine – whatever, 19-year-old ACC quarterback who, he sees all these vanilla defenses week in, week out that are giving up 30, 40 points. A Bill Belichick-led scheme against him, he's never seen anything like this in his life. They're going to throw looks at him that he's never seen. They're going to throw pressures at him that he's never seen, that some of these coordinators have never seen. Bill Belichick is going to have such a leg up experience-wise on these guys. I think he might run some circles around him. It might be a team that you look to bet the under every single game. I think they're going to be playing in some defensive slugfest. But the quarterback situation is worrisome. Max Johnson comes back from his leg injury. Will he be the starting quarterback? He's never been a viable quarterback in college, whether it was at LSU, whether it was at Texas A&M. He's always really been struggling. And Gio Lopez transferred in from South Alabama. He's more of kind of your mobile dual threat type of quarterback. Does he get the nod? I have someone that talked to a staff member at North Carolina, and they said it sounds like Max Johnson's actually going to be the guy or get the first crack at this. So I keep an eye out for that for sure. But it's the defense for me and the transfers that he brought in, the schemes that he's going to be able to run. I think he keeps every game close, and he gives them he's going to have the coaching edge in pretty much every single game. So give me UNC to go over. I think the win total is 6.5 right now, and win 8 or 9 games this season.
All right, Beef. As far as closing up shop on some of the team previews here, again, I like to go multiple choice. Stanford, Wake Forest, Cal, BC, Virginia, And out of those teams right there, which are obviously ranked at the bottom of the conference for predictions here on Phil Stills magazine, any of those teams do you think could be a sleeper or a tough team, tough out? Once again, we're talking about Virginia, BC, Cal, Wake Forest, and Stanford.
Before I answer that, can you tell me who the head coach at Stanford is?
Frank Reich.
There you go. Didn't know if you're gonna know that one. That was something I looked up or I saw like last month, and I was like, wait, I completely forgot about that. That and Matt Patricia is the defensive coordinator at Ohio State.
Yeah, love it.
It's a pretty wild one too. I actually had Stanford going 5-7. I don't know if I actually believe that. It might have been just the way kind of some of those matchups went. Cal's always going to be a tough out, but I had them going 5-7 too. They're in a bit of a weird situation with the program. They actually brought in Ron Rivera to be like the GM, and I think he's kind of clashing with head coach Justin Wilcox. Wilcox is a really good coach, but it's Cal. He's just never been able to get the talent. But Cal's always a stingy team. If you remember last year, Miami needed to go down to the final snap to beat them out there. But they did get a former, I think it's a 4-star, potentially even 5-star transfer quarterback, Devin Brown from Ohio State. He was the guy who wore 33 the past couple of years for them. He actually transferred out to Cal. He's going to get his first chance to be the full-time starting quarterback. Interested to see that one. But I'd probably go with Cal, but I think Stanford's going to be somewhat interesting this year with Frank Reich leading the way.
Yeah, Andrew Luck, doing all the dirty work, recruiting. Frank Reich just going to coach, and I saw him at the ACC media day, and he looked pretty happy getting the opportunity to coach college kids, coach the game of football. And like I said, it's not on the same playing field with it at all, but it's like Deion doesn't need to do this. Frank Reich doesn't need to do this. It's like, but they love the game, and it's pretty cool to see. It's a sickness. I always
hear Ross Tucker always says that. He's like, I got the sickness. And he's always like, what's sickness? And it's just football. It's just you're obsessed with it. You can't get away from it. And a lot of us have it. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have, I think.
You're damn right. And it's here, baby. All right. Big picture question for the ACC Heisman Trophy. Cade Klubnik above all. If somebody from this conference is going to win the Heisman, is there anybody that you have your eye on?
That's not named Cade Klubnik?
Well, you can say Cade Klubnik. Obviously, he's probably higher up on the board as far as odds are concerned. But anybody else that you would think could potentially be in the running, be in the mix?
I think it was when you were away. I don't think he's actually going to win the Heisman. He might even be on the board, but I did give him out for the Doak Walker Award, which is the best running back in the country, Isaac Brown. Rushed for over 1,000 yards as a true freshman last year at Louisville. I think he's in for a big year this year. I think we look up, and he's kind of neck and neck with Jeremiah Love for the best running back in the country. You're going to have a balanced offense with Miller Moss. I think he runs for over 1,500 yards this year. It's a South Florida kid, very talented, very quick. One of my favorite running backs in the country. I think we look up, next year, and he's on the board as a potential first or second round pick. So Isaac Brown, not for Heisman, but Doak Walker. I think he was 20-1.
All right. How many teams are making the playoff from the ACC?
From the ACC, I think I actually when I put my predictions out today, I think the only one I actually had making it was Clemson. I think it's a conference that we see a bunch of teams kind of in that 9-3 to 8-4 mix. And if the only scenario would be for one of those teams to actually get into the playoff would be to knock off like Clemson in the title game. So sitting right here today, I say Clemson's the only team from the ACC to make it.
All right. Cade Klubnik is a plus 950 to win the Heisman Trophy, only behind Garrett Nussmeier at plus 850 and Arch Manning plus 650. Opening weekend's going to be incredible, man. It's going to be insane. All those great games, Texas and Ohio State with the two best as far as odds favorite to win the national championship. As we said, LSU and Clemson, Bama, Florida State. What's another game out there that has your attention for that opening weekend?
That night is Utah, UCLA. That's a nightcap game as well. The midnight.
Does that move the needle for you? Is that a game that you're fired up to see, huh?
Well, every time you see a graphic for the Saturday slate, I was thinking it to myself, but they have the Ohio State, Texas. Who's the next one? Notre Dame, Miami.
Notre Dame, Miami. There you go. Yeah, that's a game.
And then LSU, Clemson. And then they keep putting Utah, UCLA. I'm like, all right, your boy Nico in the spotlight against Utah team who I think is going to win the Big 12. So
Yeah, that's good luck against Utah. All right, great stuff. Ryan Beef Coyle can be found on all socials. Ryan Coyle 35 does a bang up job. Beef up front, talking all things ACC. We're going to be back at it with summer class, schools in session, talking all things SEC. We're also going to have a Heisman Trophy draft, snake style. Looking forward to that. We'll hit on some of the top storylines, including Deion's health and the outlook for the Colorado Buffaloes. For Ryan Coyle, I'm Sean Brace. Keep it locked right here to The Gambler. And as always, if you miss anything, at foxphogambler.com.